Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back. Today I have an art haul that I would like to share with you all. I was lucky enough recently to make a small trip to Greece, and while I was there, of course, I could not resist going into a couple of art shops and having a look at a few things that are not available locally in my art shop. I went into two shops. I will add the links to the shops in the description down below. So today I thought I would just share what I purchased, because who doesn't love a good art haul? So the first shop that I went to is the Tempera art materials shop, and here I purchased a few things. I also tried to make a few clips or inside the shop itself. I am not used to vlogging and things like that, so I will try and insert a few of the clips if they are at all helpful here for anybody to see what the shop was like. So, as you'll see from these clips, there was a massive variety of materials available, both art materials and general crafting materials, stuff for mosaics and all sorts of things. Now, I was obviously very tempted to pick up all sorts of materials that I cannot normally purchase easily where I live. However, I have been so influenced previously to purchase materials that I've seen other artists using online and then never end up using them because they just don't fit into my daily art practice. And so I decided to really try to curb my enthusiasm for exciting products and stick to things that I knew I was actually going to use. And as my main focus is watercolors, I stuck to things that are watercolor related: papers, brushes, watercolor paints and things like that, and didn't purchase any markers, pencils or any other types of things along those lines. I've also come to learn that when I'm doing plein air painting, the larger my kit is, the more likely I am not to actually paint while I'm outside. I get overwhelmed, and so I'm trying to keep things as minimal as possible. So bearing that in mind, that was the approach that I took to the items that I purchased on this trip, although I could very happily have come out with all sorts of different things to test and try, but maybe another time. Anyway, as you can see here, the shop was spacious. There was plenty of everything, open stock, every color imaginable. And yeah, so now let's get back to the haul. I focused mainly on getting things that are not available in my own local art shop. And so that is why I chose most of the things that I did, and also because I wanted to try and experience some other brands that I see people using online that I don't have super easy access to where I live. So a lot of stuff that I bought was paper, because I figured, you can never have too many nice sketchbooks, right? And I wanted to try some different paper that I saw. So the first thing that I purchased here was this Hahnemühle watercolor book. It is cold pressed, 200 GSM, and it's an A6 size. And I think this is a perfect size for plein air sketching and things like that. And so I wanted to have a chance to test the Hahnemühle paper as well. So let's open this. All right. It's a nice heavy paper. It has a little bit of texture to it, which is normal for a cold pressed. It doesn't have a little envelope at the back, but it does have the little tab and the elastic, and the cover is sort of a canvas feel. So this looks very nice. It has 60 pages, so that will keep me busy for a while. The next sketchbook that I purchased was this Fabriano sketchbook. This is a travel concertina sketchbook. And I took a concertina sketchbook with me on my trip and really enjoyed it. Now this is a much bigger one. It has 20 sheets, 260 GSM. And so I thought this would be a lovely one to have maybe for a project or a future trip. And so this also has a sort of a canvasy cover. What is quite interesting about this one is that the cover is not attached to the two ends, so to speak, as in the cover comes out here, but the cover is like that, and then the sketchbook opens from here. It has a slightly unfinished edge here, a little bit of texture. Looks very nice. It's definitely smoother than the Hahnemühle paper here, but I presume it's not cold pressed. I don't think that it actually says here. No, it doesn't seem to say anything about cold pressed. So this looks really interesting, and I think will be a really fun one to use in the future. Then I picked up this Hahnemühle tin. Now I did actually open this already and have a look inside, which is why the label is no longer on. But this is 230 GSM postcards. So I actually purchased this more for the tin than the postcards themselves. I thought that the tin looked like a wonderful size and option to make a small little art kit that one could chuck into a handbag. And I also really loved the watercolor painting on the outside of the tin. Now, I will definitely use the postcards at some stage, of course, but yeah, the tin was my main attraction in this one. The postcards themselves are nice quality. They have the lines on the back for the address and all of that, and I'm sure they'll come in useful somewhere. I'll probably store them somewhere else for now so that I can use the tin to make a little kit. So the next items I purchased were these three mini Hahnemühle watercolor pads. They were at the checkout counter, which of course is fatal. And I thought they would be perfect for small kits, like the one that I would maybe make in this tin, for example, you know, to throw in a handbag and go. So the first one that I picked up was this Britannia one. Now this is a 300 GSM. It has 12 sheets in it, and is cold pressed and matte. So it's got a little bit of texture to the paper, but is definitely not as textured as one would normally expect cold pressed to be. The next one that I picked up then was this agave watercolor paper. Now this is 290 GSM with 12 sheets and is 70% agave fiber and 30% cotton rag. And I thought this might be quite an interesting thing to try as well. Now this again does have a very small amount of texture to the paper, but very, very little. I would say even less than the Britannia. So yes, I'm going to be very interested to see this cotton agave fiber combination, what that's going to be like. And the last one I picked up was this Hahnemühle mold made watercolor. It's 200 GSM, 20 sheets, rough grain. So this has got a bit more of a grain to it. What is interesting is that this one, unlike the other two, is actually glued on two sides. So one would need a little palette knife or something to separate the sheet from the top once you are done painting. But I think these three will be very useful for little on-the-go kits and to experiment a little bit with different kinds of paper. The next item that I picked up was this ceramic palette. Now, strangely enough, I have struggled and been unable to find ceramic palettes in my local art shops. So I was quite happy actually to be able to scoop this one up. I love the fact that it's got lots of divisions in it, because I can either put a blob of paint in each division and have a sort of ready-made palette to go, or I can use the wells purely for mixing and be able to keep my mixed colors separated. So I really like this one. I think it'll be quite useful to use on a daily basis at home. It does also have a little indent here for the brush, And wait a moment. Oh, I see the indent is only on the outside, and not in the middle. That's a bit strange, but okay, all right. Well, one could balance the brush on the edge like this. But yeah, I'm very happy with that palette. I then picked up these 3 little tins. I figured they are perfect for storing kneaded eraser or putting 1 or 2 little half pans inside to add into a little mini kit or something. These kinds of little containers are always useful for something. Then I picked up again at the death counter, the checkout, these 2 mini Da Vinci brushes. Now, they definitely look a little bit gimmicky in the sense that they are very, very short and are probably not going to be particularly comfortable to use, but there was a little flat brush that I picked up here and this little round. Now, they don't have any size numbers on them, so yeah, but we'll see. Then I know that I have said multiple times that I'm not the biggest fan of watercolor brushes, but I have seen a lot of people using the Zig water brushes online, and so I wanted to give it a try. So I picked up this large round brush, and again, it'll be useful to pop into a small kit somewhere, and I'm curious to see how this is going to feel. Next, I picked up a few travel brushes. Now, I have never seen Talon's Art Creation travel brushes before. I've never seen anybody using them online. I've never seen them in any shops or any videos or anything. So I was quite curious when I saw these. They look similar to most travel brushes, to your Escoda or any of the bullet travel brushes that you can buy. And so I picked up 1 of each size that they had available. So the small brush is a size 4, and it actually feels quite solid when you put the cap on the back. It's not loose, it's not falling out. It actually feels quite decent. Yeah, it is a size 4. 4 round. Now, the small size brush, I do see that it doesn't have a little hole in the top of the cap, so that could be problematic with drying. The large brush is a size 8. Again, feels very solid with the cap, both when one adds it onto the back and everything. It does have a small hole for drying, so that's good to know. Then the next brush that I picked up was this Van Gogh travel brush, which is also something I haven't really seen anywhere before. So because I do prefer or like to use normal brushes with a water pot, I figured these are all interesting options to throw into a small kit. Now this is a plastic cover. Fits on quite nicely. It does have a flattened edge that one could use for scraping techniques. Now this does feel a little loose, which is a bit worrying. Does actually fall out if one doesn't push it in quite well. So that's just something to bear in mind. But yeah, I like all of these brushes, and I figured, with one of the little mini palettes, mini pads, one's ready to go. Now, after this, I picked up a few Rembrandt watercolors. Now, I do have Rembrandt available in my local store, but I picked up a few colors that I have not seen in my local store, and you'll also see that I picked up some colors that I think are very relevant to Greece. So the first color that I picked up was the greenish umber. Now, this is a bit of a controversial color online, so I was very curious to try it out. I then picked up the turquoise blue. I picked up the bluish green. I then picked up the olive green, and the last one that I picked up was the Venetian red. So yes, I think one can definitely say sort of a rather Greek collection of colors. The turquoisey colors for water, beautiful olive green for the greenery, Venetian red for the beautiful terracotta roofs. And I will test them out later in the video. The second art shop that we went to was Atlantis Art Materials, and here you can see inside the shop they had again an absolutely wonderful selection of supplies, paper, pads, sketchbooks. The staff here were really friendly and helpful. I looked around the store. Again, massive selection of paints, open stock pencils, inks, you name it. It was all available here. Again, I stuck to my main focus, which was watercolor supplies. And let's go over and see what I picked up here. So the first two items I picked up here were these Hahnemühle toned watercolor sketchbooks, which I have seen a couple of people using online, and I was very curious to have a look at them. So I picked up both the sort of coffee colored one and also the gray one. The reason why I've been picking up so much sketching paper is that in my watercolor journey at the beginning, I first got into picking up one or two slightly better quality brushes, and then I started getting into pigments and started buying a lot of watercolors. But through the whole journey, I've been using the best quality paper I've used is the Art Creations Talons sketchbook, which we all know is not watercolor paper. And I finally reached the point in my journey where I now want to actually start working with watercolor paper. And so this is my exploration now into testing lots of different types and variations of watercolor paper. Now you can see here that I have already gone on to the grey sketchbook, but just wanted to say that the coffee colored sketchbook is a 200 GSM. They both are, both sketchbooks, 14 by 14 centimeters. And the grey colored one is the one that you can see here right now. The grey is a lighter grey than I was expecting, which is quite nice because I think it means that the watercolor will still come across well in the book. Now, the next thing that I purchased was again this small little watercolor square by Hahnemühle. It's 300 GSM, 10.5 by 10.5 centimeters, and this is hot pressed. So this was again me wanting to experiment with different types of paper. And the hot pressed is obviously a very smooth surface, unlike the cold pressed, so I was curious to see what this would be like. It is also glued on two sides, so again one would need a palette knife to take off the painting from the top once you are done. The last two sketching papers that I picked up were these Cardi papers. Now I've seen a lot of Cardi fat sketchbooks and things like that online, so this was also something I was curious to try. The little A7 size was 150 GSM. One could buy these sheets individually as well. I just picked up the pack, again useful for a little travel kit. And the larger size is the A6 and was 320 GSM, so definitely a much thicker paper, but still small enough to pop into a little plein air kit. After that I picked up this tiny little sort of keyring book, again one of those little checkout counter things. The paper is not particularly specific quality or feel or anything like that, just a little, I don't know, just a fun little gimmick. The next thing that I picked up was this little pencil case, and this was pure nostalgia. My mother had a similar type of pencil case when I was a child that I remember, with this out of wood with this sliding lid. Now this does have a little metal button so that it can close and the sliding lid doesn't come in and out. I then picked up this small brush holder, which I thought was going to be super helpful and protective for brushes on the go. However, now that I'm actually opening it, I'm realizing that there's no way to fix what level it's open. So once you put it in a bag, if something jostles against it, it's going to be pushed closed, which obviously is not going to be good for brushes. So yeah, that's a bit of a fail, but I'm sure I'll still find something useful for it. Then I picked up this little water brush for no reason other than the fact that it is so short, and that I figured it would be a fantastic option to throw into a small kit. Clearly we are sensing a theme here. It is a nice large round, and yeah, the theme is just that, like I've said previously, the smaller and more easy to carry my kits are, the more likely I am to actually use them. And who doesn't like mini-sized stuff? I then picked up these two dagger brushes. They are by Renaissance. Now, I've never used dagger brushes before, so I'll be interested to see what those two brushes are like. They were a size 8 and a size 6. Then I got this small little graphite stick, which again I think is useful for a little kit for sketching. And then I picked up these Daler Rowney watercolor paints. Now, when I initially started my watercolor journey, it was during lockdown, and I started with one of those children's watercolor kits, you know, that little kids get at school. It was my son's. It was the only thing that was available, and I used that on a piece of normal printer cartridge paper. The art shops were closed and things like that. There was nothing I could do. I then later managed to get hold of this little set of Crayola tubed watercolors. Again, I didn't know anything about watercolor pigments or paint quality or anything like that, and I used them happily for a time, and they were great. And then later, once things reopened, I wound up picking up these Daler Rowney half pans 2-packs that were available at a local art shop. And I, again, didn't know anything about pigments. I just picked up, a pack of greens and a pack of blues and a pack of reds. And I used them for a very, very long time before I finally moved on to, higher quality paints like Rembrandt, Winsor Newton, Daniel Smith, and those kinds of things. Rosa Gallery, those, all of those types of paints. But one of the paints that I had in that one of those sets was a sap green. And I really, really loved the sap green. And I automatically presumed that all sap greens were going to be roughly the same color. And when my Daler Rowney sap green ran out, I went ahead and purchased a sap green from Rembrandt, I think, and was very shocked to discover that in actual fact, sap greens are not all the same. And the sap green that I had purchased was not anything close to the Daler Rowney sap green that I had. We can see here the Daler Rowney on the right, and on the left-hand side was the sap green from Rembrandt. And I really don't like the vibrant sap greens. I prefer the ones that have a more natural olivey tone. And anyway, long story short, I went on an exploration and landed with the Daniel Smith sap green because Daler Rowney paints are not available in my art shop. Anyway, moving on to the other paints that I purchased with the Daler Rowney. I picked up a transparent turquoise, and then I picked up a bunch of purples. I don't have much purple in my collection of tubes, and so I thought that would be fun to try. I got a permanent mauve, purple lake, ultramarine violet, and ultramarine pink. Okay, so I am first going to just test the colors with a brush that I'm used to, and then I can maybe give some of these other brushes a try. So I'm going to start with the Daler Rowney ones here. And I think the first one that I'm going to start with is this sap green that I always used to enjoy so much. So, now we've got a bit of binder happening here. Let me just grab a cloth. Okay, now that we've got that bit of binder resolved that was coming out at the top here, let us have a look at this sap green that we have here. So, as we can see, this is a really nice sort of olivey sap green. If we look at the Daniel Smith one in comparison, let me just fetch that, then we will see that it also has a sort of olivey tone. In fact, this is even more olive than the Daniel Smith one, but it doesn't have that vibrant green color that a lot of sap greens have. I will try to find a clip to insert here. I have done a video previously about why I chose the Daniel Smith. I will try and see if I can find that and insert the little clip so that you can see the difference in color that I'm talking about. So that's very nice. That's a color that I know, but it is very nice nonetheless. Now we have a look at the transparent turquoise. So here we have, oh, I've still got a bit of green on my brush. Okay, yeah, that is a gorgeous color. That is a beautiful turquoise color. Wow, I want to try that next to my Winsor & Newton Aqua Green to see what the difference is. Okay, so this is obviously leaning a little bit more to the green side. They are both beautiful colors though, and definitely very appropriate for the Greek water. Now let's move on to our purples here. So the first one I'm going to try is Purple Lake. Now I have not been giving any pigment information here, so let me just quickly go back. This sap green here is PY73 and PB29, and our transparent turquoise is PB16, which is a phthalocyanine blue. The PY73 is acrylide yellow, and the PB29 is ultramarine blue. Now this Purple Lake is PV19, which is a quinacridone / dioxazine purple, according to the packaging here. Okay, now that to me is leaning very pink and reminds me quite a lot of Rosa Gallery's what is it called now? Let me think about this for a second. It's reminding me very much of a Rosa Gallery paint that I have. Let me quickly check. It's reminding me a lot of Rosa Gallery's quinacridone lilac. Look, that's almost exactly the same color. So that's interesting. That is pretty much exactly the same color. So that is interesting. Next, I'm going to try a permanent mauve. Let's have a look at what we've got here. Oop, this is running out of way for me. Okay, this is pigment PV23 dioxazine violet. That is a very beautiful, rich purple in the mass tone. Very pretty color. I don't use too much purple, which is why I didn't want to buy too many expensive paints in purple, but I might just have to start doing some florals or something so that I can make use of some of these beautiful colors. The next one that I'm curious about is this ultramarine pink. This is PR259. Let's have a look what this one is all about. So this is, okay, it's coming off a little bit lilac-y almost, but with a good touch of pink, and I can definitely see some granulation there from what must be the ultramarine side of this that I'm definitely not seeing in any of the other paints. So that looks pretty. Again, I'm going to have to start doing some florals or something to make use of all of these gorgeous colors. Oh no, look, it's running away from me. Oh dear, it's got a bit of air in it, I guess. So this one is the ultramarine violet, which is PV15. Let's have a look at this one. So this is looking a lot closer to a lavender. Let me put my lavender next to it to see what we are getting there. Oh, my lavender is dirty. Let me just clean that. So this is a Rembrandt lavender. Okay, actually there is quite a lot of difference there, a lot more than I thought at first glance. And also again, this has, you can see even on this Art Creations paper, you can see the granulation in those two ultramarine colors. Okay, this I'm going to go and clean up quickly. And now we're moving on to our Rembrandt paints here. So I'm going to start with turquoise blue. This is a PB15 PG7 pigment. Let's see. Okay, that is once again leaning, I think, a little bit on the greener side. Let's put it here next to these other two that we swatched earlier. Okay. This is interesting. They are actually all quite similar. The aqua green definitely has, the Winsor & Newton definitely has a greener tinge to it. Then our next one that I wanted to look at is the bluish green. This is PG7 and PB15. So let's have a look at that. Okay, that is a very pretty color. That is a very greenish leaning color, but I actually really like that. It's very pretty. Then let's try Venetian red. Now this should be a beautiful sort of clay brick red color. Oh yes, look at that. That is very rich. It feels quite opaque. It is PR101. That is a very beautiful color. I currently am leaning to more transparent colors, so I don't know how much I will be using that soon, but it is very, very beautiful. This is now the greenish umber, which I know some people online dislike. I've seen a couple of sort of negative reviews of it just being a sort of a muddy color. I actually love it. I actually love it. It's just the kind of sort of muted natural color that is fantastic for landscapes, for autumn, for even marks as, you know, discoloration on buildings. I can see so many places where that color would actually be rather beautiful. So I guess it just depends on what you enjoy painting and what your preferences are. That's the good part, is that we can all enjoy what we like, right? And then the last one that I have here is the olive green. Oh, that's pretty. And this is just a really nice, light, bright olive green color. Probably in the maths tone, obviously, is going to be a bit darker. And is definitely very, very much more olive than the sap green. I was curious to see what the difference is there. But yes, that is very, very much more olive. And very beautiful as well. And these two colors, well, these three colors actually together could be stunning for some kind of autumn landscape. Very beautiful. So those are the colors. And now, while we are here, let me super quickly swatch some of these brushes. So this is the first no-name brand kind of just little water brush. And I'm just going to go ahead and swatch them with something that I have here in my palette already. And so we have here and yeah, that's actually decent. I quite like that. I think that'll actually work. Again, like I say, I'm not the biggest fan of water brushes, but as far as they go, that is not a bad option. This is the second one that I got. This is the Zig brush. So let's give that a try and see how well. Okay, that is actually holding a decent amount of water in the tip. So that is also something that is better than I was anticipating. So those will make two really good options for on-the-go kits. Now I'm going to try these two little mini Da Vinci brushes. Let me actually just turn to a fresh page. And let's have a look at our minis here. Okay. All right, so this is obviously a very small brush. I mean, it's the size, I mean, obviously. I mean, it works, but it definitely isn't the most comfortable thing to paint with because it's so short, which is more or less what I was anticipating. I mean, this is really a bit more of a gimmick than anything else, I think. I was quite surprised to see such a gimmicky brush from Da Vinci, I guess. I don't know. Let's try the flat one. Yeah, I mean, they also don't, they are small brushes, but they also really don't hold much water. Yeah, okay. Not entirely convinced about these. But I will definitely give them a bit more of a try outside and see how far I get with them. Now I'm going to try these two Art Creations brushes quickly. So this was the size 4, if I remember correctly. Let's give that one a try. This is the size 4. Okay. Feel like it's not holding as much water as I would expect, but it's not bad. This is the size 8. Let's see. Oh, this one's got a lot of sizing in it. This is going to take a few seconds just to get that moving. There we go. And this one, now that is nicer. Okay, that one holds a decent amount of water. What I will say about this one is that I am feeling some wiggling here of the cap against my hand, which is a little distracting maybe, but again, not the biggest deal. Something one will get used to. I like this one. In general, I like bigger size brushes anyway though, so it's, I think, probably also just from my preference that I prefer this one to this one. I do have Escoda brushes similar to these. Let me just test something with them. So these are my two Escoda brushes. Now this is a size 2, which we can say is slightly smaller. And let me just give that one a quick whirl. In comparison to this one. Okay, we'll see how well they hold up, but if you can get hold of these, they are definitely, I think, a pretty decent alternative for the more expensive options like Escoda. Definitely worth a try. These obviously feel much lighter than the Escoda brushes. They're definitely not as solid in the hand as the Escoda brushes, and I think lengthwise they are also quite a lot shorter when you actually put them together. So that is also something to bear in mind. but they are quite a decent alternative. Then I want to try this little Van Gogh one here. Let's have a look at this one. Let's see what this one's going to offer us. Okay. Okay. I feel like the bristles on this one are not quite as flexible as I would like, but it's not bad either. And it feels okay in the hand. It's obviously, again, very, very lightweight in the hand. But I'm not feeling any wiggling from this, even though it's not super tight. I'm not feeling any wiggling from it while I'm actually painting, so that's quite good. And then lastly, I have these two dagger brushes here. Let's try the small one first. So we have this small one. And that is very nice, actually. Seems to hold a decent amount of water and pigment. That is actually very nice, very soft, smooth feeling brush when using it. Let me try the larger size. And you can probably tell that I've never used a dagger brush before. I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to do with it. I will have to work on that. But yeah, actually, I quite like them. They feel very, very soft and pliable. And that was the Renaissance brand. So there we go. That is the end of today's haul. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you will see some of these products in the background in upcoming videos and vlogs. I will definitely at some stage come and give more feedback on some of the things, especially papers and sketchbooks, which I haven't tested today. And hopefully we'll be able to get some paintings done with some of these beautiful paints that I can share with you all. But that is where I'm going to end for today. If you want to see what I painted while I was away, then do please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and that video will hopefully be coming soon.